Let's talk about control. How do you take a massive, complicated project and keep it from just spiraling into chaos? Well, the answer is a system called Earned Value Management, or EVM. And today, we're going to build the foundation of that system, piece by piece, so you can see exactly what makes it so incredibly powerful. It's a classic problem, isn't it? You've got this huge goal, but there are 1,000 moving parts. The secret isn't trying to track every single little thing randomly. No, it's about building a solid, logical framework from the very, very start. And that is exactly the framework we're going to map out right now. So, here's our game plan. We'll start with the big picture, defining the project scope. Then we'll break down all the work that needs to be done and figure out who's responsible for what. After that, we're going to zero in on the real heart of the system, the control account and its manager, before we tie it all together to see why this structure is such a game changer.
Okay, first things first. Before you can figure out how to do something, or who should do it, or how much it's going to cost, you absolutely have to know what you're building. This is the bedrock. Everything else is built right on top of this.
Think of this statement of work, or SOW as you'll hear it called, as the project's constitution. Seriously, it is the single source of truth that everybody on the project agrees to. If a task you're working on doesn't trace back to this document, you got to ask yourself, why are we even doing it? It's the ultimate reference point. And when it comes to the SOW, precision is everything. A vague SOW is a project manager's worst nightmare. A task like research an issue is impossible to measure. But what about deliver a 20-page analysis on issue X by Tuesday? Now that is a concrete task. You can plan it, you can budget for it, and you can track it. Getting this clarity up front saves you from so much chaos down the line. All right, so we have our SOW. We know what we need to deliver. The next logical step is to take that big what and break it down into a detailed blueprint of how we're actually going to get there. And this is where the work breakdown structure, or WBS, comes into play. If the SOW is the vision, the WBS is the architectural plan. It takes the final product, let's say an airplane, and it deconstructs it. It breaks it down into major parts, like the fuselage and the wings, and then it breaks those down even further, until every single piece of work is identified and mapped out. And this quote right here, it nails it. The WBS is the absolute backbone of the entire EVM system. It is so much more than a to-do list, it's the framework for everything that comes next. Every dollar you spend, every ounce of progress you make, it's all tracked against this structure. Without a solid WBS, you simply can't measure performance effectively. It's impossible. But building a good WBS means avoiding some common traps. A classic mistake is structuring it around your company's org chart instead of the actual work that needs to get done. Another is not capturing 100% of the scope from the SOW. The real goal is to find that sweet spot. Enough detail to give you control, but not so much that you're buried in bureaucracy. So we have the what from our SOW, and we have the how from our WBS. The next piece of the puzzle is connecting all of that to the who, the people and the teams who are actually going to do the work. I want you to picture two parallel structures. On one side, you've got the WBS, which is all about the work. On the other side, you have something called the Organizational Breakdown Structure, or OBS. That's basically just your company's org chart for the project. So the WBS is the what, the OBS is the who. So how do you connect the work to the people? Well, that is the job of the Responsibility Assignment Matrix, or the RAM. It's a simple idea, but it's an incredibly powerful grid that merges the what with the who, creating these undeniable points of accountability. And here's a simple look at how it works. The rows list out the work from the WBS. The columns list the teams from the OBS, and the intersection? That's where accountability is born. Each spot where a team is assigned a piece of work, you see it marked here as CA, that becomes something we call a control account. So please, don't think of the RAM as just another chart to fill out. It's more like a formal handshake between the plan and the people. This is the exact point where the project's what meets the organization's who. It's where theory becomes reality. Now let's zoom in on that intersection point we just identified, the control account. This is the beating heart of an EVM system. I like to think of it as a little mini project inside the larger project. So what is a control account, really? It's the single point where we bundle together a specific piece of the scope, its own budget, and its own schedule. And then we hand all of that to one person who's responsible for delivering it. This is the fundamental unit where we actually measure performance. Now, for a control account to actually work, it has to have these 5 key ingredients. It needs a super clear scope, a firm budget, and defined start and end dates. But crucially, it must have a single owner, and it has to be traceable all the way back up the WBS. If you miss any of these, your ability to measure performance just completely falls apart. And that single assigned point of responsibility, that's so important that it gets its own special title, the Control Account Manager, or CAM. And this isn't just a title, believe me. It is a critical role. The CAM is the owner of that mini project. They have a contract, in a way, with the overall project manager. Their job is to deliver a very specific piece of the scope, on schedule and on budget. For their piece of the pie, the buck stops with them. And as you can probably imagine, this is not an easy job. A great CAM is basically a mini project manager themselves. They need to be fluent in everything from scheduling and finance to risk and change management, all while leading their team to actually get the work done. It's a tough gig. Okay, so we've defined the scope, we've broken it all down, we've assigned it out, and we've identified the managers. Let's pull back and look at the big picture. Why do we go through all of this rigorous, top-down structuring? What's the payoff? This little flow chart here shows the whole process in action. It's like a waterfall of accountability. The scope flows down from the main contract. It goes through the WBS and it lands in each control account, right down to the daily tasks. Every single step is connected. Every single step is traceable. And this is the ultimate payoff. All of that upfront work, the SOW, the WBS, the RAM, it's all done for one single reason: to create a stable, agreed-upon baseline. This is the plan in plan versus actual. Without this structure, you're not measuring performance. You're just guessing. So we've built the perfect ruler. We have a solid baseline that integrates scope, schedule, and cost all in one place. But that just leads to the next big question, right? How do we actually use that ruler to take the measurements that tell us if we're on track, ahead of schedule, or, heading for disaster? Well, that is a fantastic topic for our next explainer. Thanks for tuning in.